Well, New Hope, the sermon for this week is not for the faint of heart, either for me to preach or for you to listen to. I feel like this Sunday needs some sort of disclaimer because as we move through the Sermon on the Mount, as we hear what Jesus had to say, he comes to this place where he says, "You've heard it say, do not commit adultery. But I tell you, whoever looks at a woman lustfully in his heart has already committed adultery in his heart." So the sermon this week is focusing on those words of Jesus. We're talking about sexual purity, talking about lust, talk about adultery, talk about sexual sins and healing from those and recovery from those and freedom from those things. And I feel like when we get into a topic like this, there's one of two errors that Christians can easily fall into. One, on one hand, is thinking that sexual sins are by far the worst sins and other sins aren't as bad, and so they get put into this sort of taboo sort of arena where we can't talk about them, we can't think about them, they're awful, but other sins aren't as bad. But then there's the other hand where we feel like there's nothing wrong with sexual sins and shouldn't be made such a big deal about. I think the Bible lands firmly in a balanced place right in between those two. And we're going to look at what Jesus has to say, we're going to look at what the Word of God has to say, and I think it'll be a challenging sermon for us, and definitely one in our society that we need to hear. So I challenge you to come out to church this Sunday and not to miss this sermon, even if it's a difficult one to hear and is painfully pointed at times. I pray that you'll come out, that we'll be able to talk about it together. Look what the Word of God has to say about this really important part of our lives and how we can be what Jesus calls us to be. So I look forward to seeing you Sunday morning at 10:30, and hope that God blesses the rest of your week. See you soon.